Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the Private Property Farming Podcast. My name is Mbali Nwoko, your host, every Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 p.m., right here on the Private Property channel. This is the Farming Podcast where we discuss all your farming needs, bring you our local experts, farmers, entrepreneurs, agripreneurs, whatever you decide to call them. This is where we get to interview them, get to know their businesses, understand their business models, who they're supplying to, the challenges that they face, the opportunities that they've seen in the industry, and more so the people that they're partnering with to ensure that the agriculture industry grows and remains sustainable. Therefore, today we've got an exciting guest, an agripreneur as well, but his business offers a range of different services and products in very, very key sectors. But then we will hone into the agriculture sector and understand a little bit more on what the company does and their solution in the agri space. And as always, if you have any questions for our guest this evening, please feel free to comment. We love engaging with you live on the show, and especially when the guest is on the show, because they get to unpack your questions in a technical view if needs be, or just give some advice based on the challenges or opportunities that you are currently seeking. Like, share, comment, and also subscribe to our channel, because we do have other podcasts on the Private Property YouTube channel where you could get a whole load of content directly from your screen, from your laptop, from your phone, wherever you'll be logging or watching on the Private Property YouTube channel. Definitely, please support the Farming Podcast as well if you definitely enjoy listening to this podcast. Our guest this evening is Priaash Ramadeen, who is the co-founder of the Awareness Company. I've been fortunate to know him for about a few years now, and the business is growing, and I know they've reached so many milestones since we met about 3 years ago, if I remember correctly. And so let's bring him onto the show. Priaash, thank you so much for your time this evening. How are you doing?
Good evening, Mbali. It's great to be here, and I'm doing great this evening. It's a warm evening, which is always great, and I'm feeling good. And thanks for having us.
Awesome. It's a pleasure. We could not have you onto the show because, again, you're just one of those companies that are making moves in the agri industry and have been around for some time now. But I think what's exciting is that you are an agri-tech company, or a technology company rather, and providing a range of services. But just maybe break it down to us. What does the Awareness Company do? And you are the co-founder, so what do you do in the company, and who are your other partners and their roles?
Perfect. Thanks so much, Mbali. So let me start off with what the Awareness Company does and who we are. Essentially, the Awareness Company helps people get better at what they do. And that's the core of what we're doing. Whether you're a farmer, an agricultural organization, an agri-service provider, working in the mining industry, working in the security industry, or a park ranger, we help people get better at what they do. And we do that by doing three things. It's digital intelligence, it's data storytelling, and we provide the fastest insights on the planet. That's what we're really about.
Right. That sounds very high tech and very high level. Maybe break it down to us. Digital intelligence, give us, just break it down so that we understand in layman's term what that means.
100%. So let's look, because we're talking agri today, for the farmer. We help them digitize their farms. That means bringing in digital technologies into their farming operations, helping them understand how to get more efficient, helping them to optimize their operations, make better use of their resources. And actually what we're fundamentally doing is, again, helping them be better farmers, be better at what they do using technology, which is, there's all the buzz about technology in all the different industries. And we want to bring that into the agricultural space. And that's what we're working towards. And that's what we've been doing over the past few years.
Yeah. So, a farmer could be listening, Priaash, and says, I've got a water dam in my farm, or JoJo tanks. I'm using normal drip irrigation, which I am saving water by virtue of just using drip irrigation. I'm farming under cover or under protected or shade net, and I've pretty much got a good system going. what other forms of technology would I need to be more efficient?
100%. So think about it this way. When you want to scale their operations, and what's the key differentiator for the farmer? How are they going to compete in the market? Technology we view as being that force multiplier for them. Whether they have a JoJo tank and they're monitoring that manually, are they driving out distances to check the levels? We can automate that and say, okay, now you can just check it out on your phone. As a simple example, do you keep track of all your resources and all your people and all the jobs that you have within the farm? Can we automate your soil moisture and your soil analysis? And it's all of those type of things. And again, it's bringing all those technological buzzwords that's happening, AI and IoT, Internet of Things, and all of that. Now, the farmer doesn't have time to go and investigate and research and analyze. It's all about the data that we can then produce for that farm. And when you take that data, you start making data-driven decisions. And when that happens, you reduce your administrative burden, you get this peace of mind, and then you spend time on farming, not on all the other stuff. And that technology, what we view, is going to just help them get better, help them scale, help them be more competitive in the market, and give them that differentiation that is, that they need.
Yeah, it sounds like there's so many plug points here, that will be required on the farm, from the JoJo tank to the water dam to maybe my pack house and so forth. And I heard you say, digitize or automate your soil moisture, etc.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's so many plug points. Like, how do you bring all of that together? Because I suppose a farmer who's used to a certain system and a certain way of working season after season, they get quite comfortable in that, and they don't want to break that chain because, it takes quite a while as a farmer to get into a groove where you're working alongside nature quite well, where you're harvesting a good crop at every season, or maybe raising a good herd at every season. And so, how do you then incorporate technology to farmers who have got a good system going and are creating employment? And now the awareness company comes onto my farm and is putting so many different touch points. And how do I manage all of this and understand what this technology would be reporting to me at the end of the day?
100%. I love the question. And this goes back to the name of our product. Our product is called Hydra Holistic Agriculture. And it's holistic in many senses. So on a farm, there's so many different components, whether you're a livestock farmer or a crop farmer or mixed farmer, or you're an agricultural organization with, big different operations, pack house, like you mentioned, scouting requirements, you need to report to different stakeholders. Now, there's a lot. And we understand that. But the holisticness of that doesn't mean you have to start with big bang with technology. And that's one of the mistakes. You identify what's your current pains on the farm. So which is, the one thing that's bothering you, which is the one area you want to optimize and make better. And that's how we start. And then we grow the solution. So our approach to providing technology isn't this big bang approach. You start small and you build it up and you build around the requirement of the farmer. Because at the end of the day, Hydra, our technology exists for the farmer, for the agricultural organization. So it must work for them. It's not something, we want to push down. It's here's a solution to help you get better. And we help farmers scale. So if a farmer has one farm, and what if they want to do 2 locations or 3 or want to scale out? Then how do they manage that? And this type of technology that we're talking about that, runs all the data, that's really what it's about. Getting to that data-driven decisions, getting them to optimize, and getting them to just, do different things. Because with technology, there's different possibilities that come in once you deploy it. So that's really what, the fundamentals of it is.
So it's the awareness company, and you have a product called Hydra, which is essentially what the farmers would be buying from you. Is that correct?
100%, yes. And that's so Hydra is our product, and we sell it as a service. But we also don't just drop products or software into the hands of farmers. Unlike our other tech solutions that we've seen, we walk the digitization journey with the farmer, and this is critical. And we know how it's been, with in the industry. There's a lot of solutions. Farmers have been burned by technology, so you gotta help and you gotta walk that journey. And when you do that, then you can actually provide the right solutions to the farmer or agri organizations.
Right. And I'm loving what you're saying, providing the right solutions to the farmer. When you guys developed Hydra, which type of approach did you take? Did you just think, okay, maybe farmers are going through X and Y challenges based on what you've heard, based on what you've read, and then decided to develop a product? Or did you visit a couple of farms in different geographic regions and identified a common thread with those farmers to be able to develop Hydra? Which approach did you take first? And when bringing Hydra to the fore or to the farmers, how was that reception from the farmers like?
100%. So I'm going to take a long approach. I love the question. So this actually starts off like as to why we created the company, to actually answer the question, and our background. So, previously we worked with defense and security and conservation, previously anti-rhino poaching campaigns in our previous lives. And that gave us the idea, to create a company, to create our own technology to serve different types of markets. And the team, as there's Estelle and Shazia, who I didn't speak about earlier. When we thought about this, we like, okay, let's create this technology that applies into different markets, but that have an interlink into them. So when we looked at agriculture, how it started off, Estelle in the company, the co-founder as well, she's a plant crazy person. She loves plants. She plants everything. And, that was like also part of our starting point, how do we get into the agricultural sector? So when we first deployed into a farm, that was when, all the lights started, going out. And we are firm believers of you got to get your hands dirty. You got to go out there, you got to go into the farm, you got to roll in the dirt, and you got to see what it's like. And, the first time you take a piece of technology and you're out in the sun, then things start clicking when you're speaking to the farmer in the field. So that's how it started. And we deployed a few pilot projects, and then we learned some really cool lessons. And, and some things you can't learn in the office or on your PC. And that's sort of how we started. And then we started deploying on a few other farms, learning more lessons. Then we started getting involved with agricultural organizations and deploying different types of solutions, thereby achieving, this holisticness that we speak about. So the solution then is for the value chain from farmer to agri organization, and we're working on the others as well. So that's, that's how we got to where we are at the moment.
Right. And so give me a brief case study, right, on how a farmer has been able to use Hydra and see its effectiveness on their farm. Maybe we could go back to an example. I remember when we met in the early days, you showed me a demo of a livestock farm. I can't remember where she was based. I remember she was particularly a farmer, yeah. And you showed me of how her cattle move, etc. So maybe if you could just break that down for us before she used Hydra and during and after she used Hydra, so that everybody at home can pretty much understand what your offering is. Because some people may still get lost in translation. We always hear about agri-tech, sustainable solutions, Internet of Things, but just in the basic examples, maybe if you could just refer to that demo from a conversational point of view, if you could refer to that demo and how that farmer was able to, benefit from using Hydra.
Perfect. Awesome, Mbali. And I'm so glad you remember that demo. It was a few years back, pre-pandemic times. And yeah, so, a big shout out to that farmer. Her name is Delian. Her farm is in Dalfan in Potchefstroom. And we deployed a few solutions, and she's still a Hydra user, which is fantastic. So two aspects to that. We deployed the solutions from, a farm security perspective, and also what we call farm awareness, so digitizing her cattle, understanding where they're moving from a security perspective. So it's very simple. The solution, we put GPS collars on some of the cattle that allowed her to monitor them in real time. But also it has she's also a stud breeder, a stud farmer, which means she grazed the cattle as well. And our current operations were completely paper-based. It was paper-based and a few spreadsheets that were being managed. And we have completely digitized that. And when I say digitize that, it's all either on your phone or on your laptop, and everything is structured, and all her data and history is completely there. And and now it's not a case of papers, and she can export from Hydra and submit to compliance, and it's things like that that just makes people's lives easier because it's all digitized now. And Hydra is, again, I know I repeat this, helps them be better, helps them reduce their admin. And one lesson I can give you from that farm, which is a true story, and I promise you, we deployed this on there. And one of the cattle, so the IoT network, there's some cables running from the power supply to there, and one of the cattle walked up the mountain and bit the one cable that was being supplying the power to the IoT network. How that cattle knew it was that one, but this is a true story. And then the tracking stopped working. And this is one example of, this is reality. These are farms. Things happen differently. But from a case study, that is one example. And then we have other examples from digitizing citrus operations, which is different types of farming. So again, it's the holistic nature, and that's what makes us different in the agri-tech space. Our solution is for livestock farmers, for crop farmers, for citrus organizations, for fruit farming, for agri-service providers. We're trying to piece all of it together and interlink everything.
Yeah, Priyash, I'm still going to go back to that time you did that demo. And I think some other critical points that you're not even mentioning here. And I think that's the wow factor of Hydra, and pretty much what got me hooked was still sticking to that female farmer. And allow me, if you may, still sticking to that female farmer and her case studies. That I remember you did say that you put a monitoring tracking system on the cattle's neck. And as they go out and graze, I think, the herder will open the farm gate, the cattle go out and graze in various areas, and she had different dams or water areas.
Water resources, yeah.
Yes, and in the Hydra system, you could see that in real time, because I remember seeing many, many dots, on the system, and you were saying this is where currently the cattle are grazing. And what you can then do is that as a farmer, see which areas or spots your cattle likes to graze. And, as a farmer, you could just drive to that specific area and see what about that area is so attractive for the animals. It may be a specific type of grass that is growing there that is making them eat better, etc. And I also remember you explaining a simple concept to say, how to spot if a cattle is sick. I think that's where all the cattle disperse from the sick one. And as a livestock farmer, you could see in real time using Hydra that there's a problem here. All the cattle are not interacting with this specific cow, for example. Maybe just elaborate further on that.
Yeah, no, and I'm so glad you remember the detail of that. So, when you see data from a farm in real time, it allows different possibilities. So, that one specific example was, two cattle that were butting up to each other and walking the same distance and route, which is odd. And that is different behavior. And you can only pick things like that up when you're using real-time data and the information from there. So it has that dual purpose of, again, where the cattle are grazing, should I move where my cattle are? Should they be in a different place closer to different water areas? There's a whole lot of those possibilities that come up because you're digitizing your farm. And that's really what it's about. So, and then, you can monitor things like the gates and your storerooms and your process of your breeding, all via the app itself.
Yeah, this is amazing. We actually have a comment from Nomvula Motsonyeng, and she says, technology is making things to happen. Indeed, Nomvula, it is making things happen. And I think reach out to the awareness company to get to know a lot more about their products. And Priya, sometimes as farmers, or particularly also on this podcast, we tend to focus on livestock or horticulture. And I just remembered that your product also speaks to game farming, specifically with the work that you're doing around with the rhinos. Okay, so maybe just explain what product you're selling in that space, because there could be game farmers, that are massive or huge supporters of this farming podcast.
No, 100% Ambali, and I'm so glad you mentioned it. That speaks to a lot of our background and where we came from. The first solutions we deployed back in the day was in, like the likes of the Kruger National Park and other game reserves. And the game aspect has two aspects to it, helping you protect those assets like rhinos. There's a big problem in the country, or actually globally. So the technology actually helps them protect that. But there's also a massive, big ecology drive from our side. It's the same principles that you would think about digitizing farms and digitizing parks, to help you understand all of that ecological aspects, whether it's conserving water, how best to use your resources, tracking those animals as well, learning those lessons. It's all from the digitization aspects as well. So we're very active in that space as well. But here's the biggest value that we are providing as well. One of the biggest values. There's a deep interlink between these solutions. So why we don't only do one sector, like only agriculture, only mining, or only conservation, as an example, there's big lessons learned between them. So we can take lessons across all of them, and then it applies and makes everyone's solution better. And that's really speaks to the holisticness of it.
Right. On that conservation of the rhinos, etc., and I'm sure, a lot of people like to hunt, and those that particularly own game farms, their animals are at risk of hunters. So maybe similar to the rhinos, like how can one protect their wild animals using the Hydra system? So, is it the same monitoring system like you would do with cattle? Does it detect if there's any poachers nearby? How does Hydra work in that specific instance?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different context from the farming, but again, it all comes down to utilizing the data. So logging the data of where your people are, where they should be active, where they should be monitoring. You can actually monitor the game itself as well. There are solutions for that, and we have done things like that. But again, it's helping them be proactive, because once you get a digital picture in front of you of your game park, remember game parks now are massive areas. So again, we utilize the data, we understand the history, you understand the weather, you understand the moon phase functions, and all of this data combined together gives them a picture that helps them anticipate the future. And when you anticipate the future with Hydra, you're in a better position. And the same applies to the farming as well. You can anticipate, and then you can act early. So that's really what it's about.
Right. So I've got a few scenarios for you, Priaash, and maybe if you could just break it down as to the multi-functions or various ways in which one could use Hydra. So, as farmers, it's not the first time we're hearing about technology. I mean, even Nomvula said technology is changing the way we farm, definitely, and even from a global aspect. So take scenario one, for example, a farmer's farming maize on 1,000 hectares on a self-driven tractor, and also maybe is using a drone to also scout the fields, for any pest and diseases. Yeah. In that scenario one, how can that farmer incorporate Hydra into the greater scheme of things, because he or she is already using technology?
100%. I love this question, because this comes down to one of the cores of what we're doing. Yeah. So one of the big issues is when there's so much technology now, and it's great, and we love it. But for the farmer, what we're getting now is they want one view of the stuff. They want to look at one thing, and they want to see the results of the scouting from the drone. So what we have done is we've integrated drone data into Hydra. Then they have a self-driving tractor. You want to then track that tractor, the movements, and synchronize it with your spraying, as an example, and understand that. So what Hydra really provides for you as well is this one view of all your farming operations, i.e. the holisticness of it. Then we can add into that all of the other aspects related to what's the type of crop, when our harvesting happens, when should you be planting, when you should be treating the field, what's the weather like. And again, now we've already augmented the one tractor and the drone information with a whole bunch of other information. And the
Right.
important thing then is we get the history.
Okay.
So that the farmer can, when the farming season starts, he can look back at the full history and say, okay, I've learned these lessons from that. So it's all about putting it together.
Scenario 2. Let's take a vegetable farmer or a horticulture farmer, so vegetable, fruits, etc. You have, let's say, 20 people coming to work on that day, maybe to pick fruits or to pick peppers or maybe to plant. So hypothetically, I'm just going to give you an average day of how things work. The workers start, let's say, at 8 o'clock. And then in that specific day, they are maybe planting. There's certain areas that they're planting, and there's certain areas where they're picking. So maybe they're planting on block A, B, and C. Typically what would happen is that maybe the foreman or the farm manager or supervisor would then write that information in a book or on their iPhone notes, or any form of notepad that's even on a phone, just to record that data to say, we've planted block A, B, and C, and D, and then also we've harvested maybe 100 crates from block E, F, G, H, right? So now everybody goes upon their day. At the end of the day, then they could say, today we harvested four blocks, and today we picked 4 blocks of 100 crates each. How does then the farmer transfer that information onto Hydra? Or would they be working on Hydra directly? Maybe just give us an example there.
100%. They will be working on Hydra directly. And that's one of the innovations that we are bringing in the farming spaces. So think that scenario. All of those 20 farm personnel, they'll be in the field with the Hydra app. As they're performing their functions, they'll be logging their data, whether they're picking or whether they're scouting for something or any of that. And as they're packing, they can do all of that counts. Now, the benefit of doing it directly in Hydra is that all of the output then is automated. All of the reporting, the analytics, and the insight is all automated. The other benefit is before any of that happens, the farm supervisor, as you mentioned, the manager, they can, the day before, a week before, the time before that happens, plan that entire thing out. Plan which people are going to go to which block, comes onto their phone, they know where to go. They can open it on the app, they can see where they are in real time in the farm, and then they can walk to the certain block, they can know they're there, and then they can start their operations. Fully digitized. So that is another brilliant example of everything can happen within the application, and all of the other things are automated. Now, the benefit in Bali, and this one is big. Can you imagine now all of that being on paper? Someone needs to take all of that paper and collate it, put it together into a sheet or something like that. The time that we are reducing by implementing it directly in Hydra is a massive, massive saving to the farmer and to all of the resources in that operation.
In that specific example, Priaash, is every farm worker, let's say that 20 farm personnel, every farm worker do they need to now have a smartphone and download Hydra so that they can record on their phones? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and it all depends on the size of the operation. So if it's a smaller type of operation, not everyone needs a device. If it's a bigger one, then you can provide everyone with a device. But this goes about the technology. Nowadays, devices have become much cheaper. And it's also a massive benefit of empowering the farm personnel with the digitization process, because what happens is you start to upskill them as well. Again, it comes down to making people better. Even the farm personnel on the ground starts getting better at what they're doing. They start using data. They start using these apps. And they get skilled. So it elevates everyone's performance, whether you're the farm personnel or the farm manager or the farm owner. So yes, in an ideal scenario, everyone is empowered to be able to work directly on the technology.
And I'm sure a lot of training would be needed, because I can imagine you're saying on a bigger scale, there are vegetable or fruit farms that hire hundreds of pickers. For example, let's say grape farms. Wine farms, they hire hundreds of pickers, and I can just imagine, that admin of everybody just having their own phone and then onto Hydra? How do you ensure that information is accurate, correct, they're ticking the right stuff? So I suppose some significant amount of training would be needed. And also, how do you then solve around the challenge of data issues? You know, not every farm is in Joburg, close to like good connectivity, for example. You know, there are farms in very, very outskirt regions, and not to say that rural areas don't have good connectivity. There are areas that have good connectivity, but there are those areas where they just simply don't, because I could be a maize farmer farming in thousands of hectares, and some of those hectares are like in the middle of nowhere. So how do you solve the challenge around internet connectivity, real-time data? You know, can one still use the Hydra on the phone, but you know, that information could be, I suppose, refreshed once someone is connected to the internet?
100%. So the first part of your question is, we've streamlined the onboarding process. And there's a whole process to reduce it, so there's not much training or anything needed. And we also pride ourselves on making really, we're obsessed with user experience. So the app must work, and you mustn't need this training, and it mustn't be this whole thing. It's, hey, download, and so we've streamlined that to quite an extent. The second part is, connectivity is a big issue on farms. We understand that. That's why we built Hydra to work offline as well. So even if there's no connectivity, the farm personnel can still log everything. And as soon as it reaches into some form of internet connectivity, it will upload it and synchronize automatically. So it still allows everyone to operate. Even if the network goes down, they can still perform their job and all of their functions.
Yeah, and just my last question, Priaash, this sounds so exciting, you know. How does then from a subscription work? You know, from a subscription point of view, how does then it work? Do I subscribe yearly, monthly, seasonally? Because again, you know, there could be farmers who are just purely breeders of specific livestock, and maybe they're working in few months of a year. There could be farmers who are just farming crop in a specific season, maybe like maize from November, they're done harvesting by June, and then, you know, for the next 3-4 months, there's nothing. So is Hydra, from a costing model or a payment terms, quite flexible in the various seasons that farmers work, etc.?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've put a lot of thought into the model as well, because it's got to work for the farmers itself. Yeah. So, I mean, our model is service-based. It's software. It's called software as a service. And we're flexible. It can be an annual subscription. It can be a monthly subscription. And we're very flexible to cater for those different needs. The question we always ask is, what value is the farmer getting? So in season, he wants to do things, but off season, does he need to plan? Does he need to look at the history? So there's always that type of questions we ask the farmer. And if it's always a yes, then they buy an annual service, as an example. So we are completely flexible to cater for these different needs and requirements of the farmers.
And just on that flexibility, does it also pertain to the size? You know, so basically for a farmer who's farming with just only 10 personnel versus a farmer who's farming on 100 personnel, does that package also differ based on the scale of the business?
Yeah, 100%. So our model caters for this. So we wanna provide the agri-tech solution Hydra to the small farmer as well as to the large agri organization. So our model scales like that as well.
Yeah, Priaash, thank you so much. It's been fantastic talking to you. Before we let you go, just let us know, where can we get more information on Hydra? Are you offering any demo services so that farmers can trial it out? Because, you know, it does get one quite anxious on using new technology, and you want to get things right. I know I'm speaking for myself as a perfectionist here, you know. So, and especially if you're used to doing things a particular way, now you have to incorporate another piece of technology. You know, you want to kind of test it out, you know, before you fully invest. So where can one get more information on Hydra? Are you offering demos, or, you know, and what type of support are you offering the farmer even when you onboard them?
Okay, so yeah, first one, we walk the digitization journey with you, and first and foremost. So we'll support and go through that. So, I mean, and we like to deploy on the farm and as part of the learning process. That's why our model is monthly. So
Yeah.
it's affordable for the farmer. You know, you don't need to jump into a year package or anything like that. So they can test it out using that mechanism. And yeah, please contact us. I mean, it's www.awarenesscompany.co.za. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. You can reach out on any one of those platforms. And yeah, we would love to connect with the farmers, agri organizations. So again, www.awarenesscompany.co.za.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Priyash, and all the best with business.
No, thanks, Mbali. Thanks for having us. And yeah, have a great evening.
It's a pleasure. That was Priaash Ramadeen, co-founder of the Awareness Company. And in tonight's show, the topic was about holistic agriculture, and he definitely provided a holistic view on how a farmer, you at home, could use hydro. I think the most important aspect of hydro is that it could be used by a startup, small scale farmer to one that is very seasoned and established in the industry. And they've got various products in mining, in the game farming with rhinos as well, and an agricultural offering that would suit any type of farmer, irrespective of commodity. Their product and their packages are quite flexible, and it's all about incorporating every single aspect on your farm and putting it into one platform where you can make an informed decision and have a holistic view of what is actually happening on your farm, on the ground. If you missed tonight's episode, you could watch it immediately after this on our YouTube channel under the Farming Podcast playlist. That is a private property YouTube channel, to be exact. And this is episode 88 under Holistic Agriculture. You could catch my conversation with Priyash this evening in YouTube right after the show. So thank you so much for watching and supporting. Thank you, Nomvula, for constantly emphasizing that technology is indeed a game changer in agri. It's 2021. Let's incorporate agri, and we're going into 2022. So we have to be smart farmers. We have to think of innovative ways in which we could make our lives a lot seamless and quite simple for us to manage these big and complicated sometimes enterprises that we're faced with. And yeah, that's it from me. I will catch you on Thursday at 8 p.m. with another fantastic guest. If you have any questions, drop us a message, and please subscribe to our channel, like, share, comment on all our social media platforms. We love to hear from you. But that's it for me tonight. Take care.